Okay, here's part 2. Talking about Scarlet Spider. And I know in the last video I said I would show you the drawing, but this is right afterward, and I'm not gonna try to go back to school and get my sketchbook. But, yeah. So, Scarlet Spider, he gets out of the egg, he says, "Oh, I remember this," and he freaks out. He's like, calm down, son." And, he, like, eases him and he gets him to calm down, and, he hands him, some tea, and he says, "You're not the real Peter Parker." And he just kind of stares at him like, I don't believe you." And he's like, "It's true. You're a clone of him." And he's like, "What?" And after they talk for a while, he gets him to believe him, and basically he's just saying, "Why would you do that? It's like playing God to clone someone." And he's already explained what happened. After Peter died, he went to the wreckage of the place where he died. I was about to accidentally tell you how he died, but I'm not going to. And he took a blood sample and, yeah, cloned him. But, so, he said, "I know, after I started the cloning process, I realized what a horrible mistake I made, but I didn't want to kill you." And he said, "Well, you should have." And then he's like, "I know you feel this way now, but eventually you'll accept it." And he was like, "I don't know about that." And so he takes him and shows him this room and says, "This is where I want you to stay so that you can clear your head and figure out what you want to do now." And then it cuts and it says 1 week later, and he's like sitting on the desk, his face and his hands and all that, you know, typical "I'm bored at school," except he's more like just thinking, "Oh, what do I do? I'm not real." And so he's like, he comes in and he says, "I've been thinking," well, he's like this, and Jackal comes in and says, "I've been thinking, you need to come up with a name for yourself." And he looks up and says, "Ben Riley." And then he says, "Why Ben Riley?" And he said, "That's my Uncle Ben's first name and my Aunt May's maiden name." And he says, "Okay." And so he was Ben Riley. And then he says, "I wanted to show you something." And he comes out, and then Jackal goes in the closet, and he says, "I wanted to show you this." And he's holding a torn up, stitched up Peter's costume, and he's saying, my old costume." And the only thing that's still okay is the mask, and you'll get why in a minute, but it's mostly because the guy who killed him, Anonymous, before he killed him, he unmasked him, and so it didn't get torn up. But so he just says, "My costume." He's like, "No, Peter's costume, remember." He's like, right. And so he takes the costume and he goes and he puts it in his room, and then he says, "I think it's time to begin training." He's like, "Training for what?" He said, "Even though I did make a mistake, the world still needs a Spider-Man." And he's like, "I don't know if I'm up for it. I died the first time." He's like, "No, Peter died. Now just listen." And he starts telling him, "Now when I cloned you, or when I cloned Peter and you came out, you weren't a perfect clone. There was one amazing ability that Peter had that I couldn't replicate into you." And he's like, "What?" And he goes and he just punches him in the face. And he's like, "Oh, why didn't I see that coming?" And he just kind of looks up and he's like, "My spider sense." And he is instantly scared because he has been saved so many times by a spider sense. But so basically, sorry, I know I'm kind of, it's just, my mind's kind of blanked out right now. Yeah, so then he says, but there is one thing that's even better. You're about twice as strong as Peter was. And so, yeah, he has not spider strength, super strength, Ben does. And so he's like, we're going to have car lifting scenes and crap. But, yeah. So they start training, and then, like, not Kane, sorry, I was thinking about Scarlet Spider #1, which I just read on YouTube, which was awesome. Go pick it up. But, so, Jackal has become a father figure to him. That's how it's going to be the whole time. He's kind of like his Madam Web type of, like, he kind of serves that role. But, yeah. So one day and this is probably going to be in the 3rd or 4th episode, he's going to develop just like Peter does, because in Incredible Spider-Man, I plan on not having him in costume till like the 5th episode. And, yeah, basically what happens is, he's getting mad at Jackal because he's really emotional because of the fact that he's not really Peter, and he's trying to figure out what to do because he doesn't understand. And, Jackal goes and, well, yeah, they get in a fight, and Peter punches him, and then he says, I'm leaving, and he hasn't left Jackal's lab ever in his life, and he says, where are you going? And he says, out, and he grabs Peter's mask and takes a and you'll see where I'm going with this. And his blue sweatshirt, and he rips the sleeve, or probably take a knife, because I'm not, even though I am gonna work out a lot to be Spider-Man, he cuts off the sleeves, and he takes a Sharpie and he draws a diagonal spider on it, and he grabs a red spandex suit that he was wearing while he was training, to I just thought of that. He should be wearing that while he's training to kind of still get the feel of the tights, even though he can't wear the old ones, because Jackal does not know how to sew. But, so he puts the spandex on, he puts a belt on, he puts the sweatshirt on, and he puts the mask on, and he leaves. And that ends that episode. And that episode is probably going to be called Reborn. And I got 1 more minute left, so I'm just going to wrap it up. So basically, he goes through his adventures as Spider-Man. And about the whole blonde thing, I'm going to buy a wig, or there's a very small possibility, probably not, because I don't think I like the idea of me being blonde. I'll dye my hair, but otherwise it'll be a wig. But, so basically, he goes to, the house that he's, not renting. He goes back to Jackal's house. I just realized how stupid that was. He goes back to, Jackal's lab. He goes back to his room, and he bought a bottle of blonde hair, and he goes and he looks in the mirror, and he's got a comb, and he says, well, I guess if I'm not Peter, I shouldn't look like Peter, and he dyes his hair. So, yeah, see you guys next time. Bye.